So for me, I think the bass drum is the kind of unsung hero of the 21st century. It's this instrument that is actually everywhere, and but never really given its due. You know, it's sort of hiding in the background. And why do I say that? Because actually, wherever you go nowadays, you will hear a bass drum, and often you might not even want to hear it, but it is there, and it's that pounding, or that deep bass sound that's coming from electronic music, from car stereos, from bars, from clubs, from shops, from concerts. It's everywhere. That didn't used to be the case. Go back 100 years in Europe and the bass drum was hardly there. Since electronic music became more and more dominant, the bass drum has become this sort of essential sound. It's something that producers of electronic music particularly really obsess over, and there are all different ways of creating a bass drum sound, of how you compress it, of which bass drum you use, whether it's 909, 808 or Lindrum, what have you. These are all electronic bass drums essentially. And then there's also in rock music and jazz music, it's how you mic up the bass drum. And finally, classical music. It's been present in classical music only really since Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. He brought it in for the Turkish March, and previously it was not really found in the classical orchestra at all, but it's become more and more important in orchestral music, but particularly actually just in popular culture. And so for me, that's why it's so important. I thought it deserves a concerto. And secondly, it's one of the oldest instruments. The bass drum actually, was found in traditional music right from the early days. Not the bass drum as we know it now in the orchestra, but big drums were used for ceremonial musics and different rites. So it's sort of this ancient and important instrument, very important now, but there's no concertos for it. It's just stuck at the back, and it's really underrated. So I thought it would be an incredibly exciting instrument to work with. I guess, some people might still question the idea of doing a concerto for just bass drum. It does seem again, kind of, an unnatural solo instrument. And that's what attracts me to it. I think, it makes you want to explore things and be more creative. But at the second premiere, the UK premiere, which was the London Contemporary Orchestra at the Roundhouse, the second after the piece finished, there's that moment before everyone applauds, somebody in the audience shouted out, "Rubbish!" And it was for me at the time, it was a horrible feeling, because there's, as a composer at the premiere performance, you are kind of, your nerves are on edge, because you're going through the whole experience of everyone of listening to the piece for the first time. You've got your doubts, you've got your excitement about the piece, and then for the first thing to hear is someone shouting rubbish was kind of upsetting. And so clearly some people aren't ready for the bass drum as a solo instrument. And later it turned out that the person who shouted that was a composition student at Guildhall School of Music, and they said it was like a perversion of classical music. And I think they were upset by the fact that I was incorporating rhythms, I guess sonic devices from other genres of music. I wasn't just following a strict classical path. And I mean, fair enough, that's their opinion, but I mean, I think they're actually missing the bigger picture of classical music, which has always engaged with broader genres and musical styles. Right back to the early days, it connected with dance forms from kind of non-classical genres. So yeah, it was interesting to hear that it could upset people, and in the end, maybe it's a positive thing that we're kind of shaking people up, ruffling a few feathers.